I have such an appreciation for diversity and what we really look like. The more that we dive into our internal self, like if we realize that our physical form makes up, a part of the pie, but that's not just who we are. I think it's going to have a knock-on effect for so many other things, not just how we view ourselves in the mirror. So I think we have to go there, but sometimes it's a really scary place for people. I know it was for me. I knew if I went to the deepest parts of what is me, I was going to have to deal with my trauma. I was going to have to relive things. I was going to have to be honest with myself, and I would have to eventually accept myself. And that's a big pill to swallow for a lot of people. And I'm here to say, though, that it's a much better way to live, and it's easier, and it takes off the pressure. I'm not here to bash plastic surgery. I think if you want to do something, again, having that choice to do it, that's fine. But for me, when I did all of these things to myself, I didn't realize, because I hadn't done the proper healing and I wasn't in the right state of mind, and I was also just really young.
That was Sophia Esperanza, a true inspiration to so many online, who lives true to her convictions and speaks to a deeper level of consciousness, pondering and reflecting how the human species can grow and evolve, even in the age of social media pressures and illusions. I've been wanting to have this conversation with her for a while now, from stewarding our bodies to stewarding the earth and taking care of animals, as well as the social media pressures and illusions that we see online with face filters, as well as her perspective on cosmetic surgery and plastic surgery. We cover it all, including things like the importance of growing our own food and getting back to our roots. So I'm so excited for you to hear this episode. Let's get into it. Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. I cannot wait for this conversation. And Sophia, I'm so excited to just sit down and have this conversation with you, because you truly radiate authenticity, and especially with a topic like this that can be so vulnerable. I just feel grateful that we get to talk about this today. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm just honored to be here. Anytime that, we can open each other up for conversation is really important in this time in history. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we should just jump right into it. There's so much to cover today, and you have like a lot of life experience with what we're going to talk about. So I would love to hear you share your story with coming from the modeling industry to body dysmorphia to now making the decision to get your implants taken out, and what led you to that decision.
Right. Yeah. So my story in the modeling career kind of begins when I was really young. Actually, I was probably about 8 or 9, and got asked, in the mall by somebody to do some pictures, and then it kind of led to just being with a local agency. But really, it didn't pick back up until I moved to Los Angeles, which was when I was 20 years old. And at first, I started off by doing a lot of like product modeling. I was working with like protein companies and things like that. And then it evolved into the next stage of my modeling career, which was mostly fast fashion. I, at the time, or was already becoming vegan. And so I wanted to find a way to kind of marry the two, this modeling career that I had, but also vegan. And the products that were promoting at that time weren't vegan. So they had like whey protein and milk and stuff like that in them. So I became vegan. And I really thought that I was stepping into this awesome industry of like fast fashion, no fur, no leather, no suede, no feathers, no silk, no anything. And so that kind of ruled my life for like 4+ years, where I just became a fast fashion model. So 5, 6 days a week, 12-hour days, binge eating at the end of the day and going to sleep and doing it all over again. And then really started to have a lot of physical effects. And when you're a fast fashion model, one of the things that I didn't even realize was happening until I left was we get flashed with a bulb, like, 5 different flashes of lights from different directions, thousands of times a day. And so I started to have like headaches and just started to feel extremely drained after work, but not in the way like just loss of energy. I just felt depleted on a whole new level. And yeah, I think there were a lot of effects from those flashing lights constantly every single day. And so And about the same time as I started to have these effects, I also started to dive more into the materials that were in these clothes. Really, it started from just wearing them. Like, I would get itchy and I would wonder why the clothes were itchy and felt like shards of plastic. And then I looked more into what they were made out of, and they were literally made of shards of plastic. And so, dove heavy into that, into the ethics of the companies that I were working for and with, and realized that, they were involved in child labor, harming the environment, poisoning our waterways with tons of chemicals from these dyes of these clothes that in turn kill animals. And so realized that I couldn't really call it vegan at that point, and be content with it. So I exited the fast fashion industry overnight. I, at the time, was paying out of pocket for my Lyme's disease holistically or just through Eastern medicine because insurance didn't cover my treatments. And so I didn't have any savings. I was kind of just dishing every single thing out that I was making through modeling to animal sanctuaries, half, or not half my money, but divvied up between that and then my Lyme's. And was like, you know what? You haven't suffered in a while. You have this modeling career that, pays you really well, and you haven't struggled in a while. So why don't you induce a bit of struggling and figure it out? You deserve to struggle. And so I quit overnight, didn't have any savings, and the next 2 years I did exactly that and just figured it out with what I had built so far, and am so much happier. And so got out of that and went fully into food, which I've always been in love with. I mean, we all are. We eat 3 times a day, most of us. So I just kind of went straight into that, and picked up something that's been a passion of mine for a really long time. And I've just never been happier, really.
That's so awesome. You have such a stark transition from getting into the modeling industry and then exiting it in such a grand, all of a sudden way. And where in your story within the modeling industry does your body dysmorphia story take place?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's like its whole own story, right? Within the modeling industry, it basically just enhanced or ushered in even more insecurity than I already had, growing up in a half kind of like tech driven society when I was young, and then it becoming fully immersive at this point. I had a bit of time to really connect with my true self without having all of these outside influences. And then you have the introduction of social media, and then things just changed for me. And so I guess I just picked up essentially where I was with my body dysmorphia before 20 years old, and it just got worse. So, one of the things that actually started to happen to me was in the beginning, I, because of my social media presence, was asked to come on these jobs, like big jobs that people had worked, their whole modeling career for, had studied for this. And just because I had a social presence, I was just asked to come on and shoot as if I was a professional model. I didn't know what I was doing. I, like, the night before, was looking up like how to pose and how to do this and how to do that, how to make yourself look taller, because I was only 5'5" um, and so really I was just kind of thrust into it, and I learned quickly. And so one of the things that happened early on was, you have the monitor, and they just consistently look as you're shooting at the pictures as they happen in real time. And I would come around to the monitor and look. I was so excited to be there. It was, my first few jobs. And I started to realize that anytime that I would take a picture smiling, everyone would kind of just push those images to the side. They weren't being starred, they weren't being used. And I was wondering, like, why is that? Why are none of my pictures smiling online? And then people started to ask me, the creative directors, like, can you smile bigger? Or are you smiling? Like, smile, Sophia. And here I am trying really, really hard to give them the smile they want. And I realized that it wasn't something that they thought was attractive or could sell these clothes. So they started to just kind of cast those images aside, and then eventually just asked me to stop smiling. So obviously that made me just turn wheels in my head, and it picked up off kind of from the things I dealt with when I was younger with my smile and not being big enough and not being like pageant enough coming from Texas. And it really enhanced something that I had with my mouth there. And I'll dive into that really quickly just because it's specific to that. But basically, um, as a kid, I was very aware that I couldn't move my upper lip, if that makes sense. So basically, when I'm speaking or when I'm smiling, I have to make an effort in order to engage the muscle on my lip. And the only way I can describe it, and I've only been able to do this since I've become a little bit older, is it's like a mini paralysis of this upper part of my lip, which I don't even know if that's even what it is. It just might be that I'm hyper aware of this one area because everyone's asked me to engage it for so long. I think there are many different kinds of faces and people, and some people just, you might be able to move certain parts of their face better than others. And so anyways, I started to see pictures of me when I was young where like my smile was just straight across, my cheeks were really big, and it really was like no teeth showing. And so that went into the next stage, which was me really sitting in the mirror, working on my smile, looking at things online, trying to get it to be bigger and all of that. So I already dealt with all of that growing up into my teens. So when this happened in my modeling career, it just amplified my insecurity surrounding my mouth. And I went to doctors, like I talked to my dentist, like, is there something wrong with my lip? And they basically described it as you just have more skin here than the average person. That makes it more difficult for your muscles to lift it up. So some doctors even suggested that I get this surgery where you basically you make an incision at the base of your nose and pull up your lip. Um, and it would help me. Was never going to do that, but that's how far I'd have to go in order to present a smile that I thought the world wanted to see. And so that was one area that really affected me. And you can see how far it goes. I mean, in just one singular part of the face, we can, fixate on it so much to where all of a sudden we're sitting across from a doctor saying, "Please fix me." And yeah, that's one that I've had to battle for a long time. And eventually now I've just realized I'm not supposed to have this pageant smile. That's beautiful and it exists naturally. And for some people, it just doesn't. And we have different, beautiful smiles just the same. And really, what it's made me feel so connected to at this point in my life is my dad. I look at pictures of my family members and especially my dad, and we have the same smile. And why would I ever want to change my lip in order to separate myself from something that is so beautiful and represents my dad. So that's one thing. And
Well, so, okay, before you keep going, it really makes me think of just how pivotal something like this is for people to hear because people clearly just can look at you and be like, "You're so beautiful." She probably doesn't have any insecurities. She's just this specimen of perfection. And it really helps people to take that reality that like everyone has their own insecurities. And
right,
most of the time, the things that we're insecure about, it's something that we're focusing on, like you said, fixating on, and no one else is even paying attention because
right.
everyone else is fixating on their own insecurities.
Absolutely, absolutely, right? You said it perfectly. Like we're so worried about our own that we aren't aware that everybody else is dealing with it to some degree, some more than others. And um, yeah, so I mean, looking back on that, it just seems so absurd. And I wish I would have accepted my smile a long time ago. There's just so many instances where I think back to, sitting in front of the mirror and smiling a million times over, trying to look at pictures and mirror that. And, what does my smile look like from the side? What does it look like from this side? And um, it's just, it's time wasted. We
Yeah.
have so much to do on this earth in such a little amount of time. And I certainly hope that conversations like this and being open and vulnerable allow people to realize that the quicker that we get over these things that make us unique, that make us beautiful, that make us, the more time we can spend on actually living our lives. And Yeah, so that's just one of the things. Another thing that modeling really brought to the surface for me, an insecurity, was my scoliosis. So I've had scoliosis or knew about it since I was in eighth grade. And when you start wearing clothes that are, really tight on your back, and you have a flash that goes off and you're faced, back towards the camera, you can see like the actual imprint of the back on the clothes. And so I started to see what happens with my scoliosis, which is one side of my back protrudes more than the other. And I literally, during shoots, had to curve my back the other way and push one side forward in order for it to just look even. If you took a picture from the side or the front, I would look like this, but from the back, it looked, symmetrical. So I had to see that all the time. And also, the people looking at the photos, photographers and the editors, had to make me aware of it, which was, I'm sure, uncomfortable for them to have to bring something to my attention, just from a selling clothes perspective. So that's something that it brought to the surface.
It just makes me
Um,
think of like how much, like we were just saying, everyone has their own insecurities, and being in the modeling industry would just like exasperate that times 100 because people are pointing out these quote unquote flaws or imperfections that maybe you didn't even notice yourself.
right. And the mirror is a beautiful thing. We have this ability to see what we look like, and find cancerous moles on our body, or whatever it is. Obviously, you could do that with your eyes too, but it allows us to be with ourselves and look things over without having to ask people, can you look here? Can you look here? But man, like the amount of time that we spent in front of the mirror screens, just looking at ourselves is
Yeah.
is is so much. And I wonder what the world would look like if we just spent less time, because I know in my life, the less time I spend in the mirror, the less time I spend looking at myself on my phone, the happier that I am, and the more beautiful I actually find myself to be when I do catch myself in the mirror, because I'm just being me. Uh, I'm not performing.
Yeah, you're
My face
radiating.
isn't performing.
Right. You're radiating your essence inside, and that's really what makes you beautiful. But because like you
Right.
said, so many of us spend so much time, probably especially women, but men too, I'm sure. If we had like, recordings on our mirrors and just put like thousands of women just staring at themselves in the mirror and what that would look like if people are picking apart the way that they look
Yeah.
and dissecting it and looking in a self-conscious way versus what you said of passing by and seeing yourself as beautiful, how different that would look.
Right. Exactly. And I think in all my time here on earth and diving into this industry and just being on social media, because that affects all of us, is um, I just, I'm really excited for us to start doing the inner work in order for us to see the results that, extend to all of the external things. We hyperfixate on things, but we're not really tackling the true issues. And maybe they're not internal for everybody. Maybe something is externally driven, but I think a lot of our problems start here. So we have to go here in order to begin to even understand them and then to fix them. Um, with with my breast implants, I started that. I mean, that insecurity began when I was really, really young. I've always been really thin and got made fun of for that growing up, sometimes out of a place of just mockery from people, but sometimes for worry, actually, like, you know, sincere concern for my health because I was thinner than most people in my family. And that made me super um, in tune with the fact that I was just really thin, and people were alarmed by it. So when I became like 13 years old, kind of everyone hit puberty, and I shot up this way, but not really out this way. And so I had people make fun of my flat chest and, just flat appearance overall. And so I couldn't wait until I was going to grow boobs. And then it was 16, and then it was 17, and I was couldn't still wait till I was going to grow boobs. And yeah, I just, from outside influences like music and the media and this idea of beauty, and also people around me at the time who I was surrounding myself by, people's moms even, I let that all seep in, but essentially made my own decision to get breast implants at in my teens, which it actually wasn't even legal to do what I did. I had to sign like a waiver because I got silicone. And as soon as I got them, I went from an A cup to a D cup overnight and cried as soon as I woke up from um, surgery and looked in the mirror. I had to hold it in a little bit until I was by myself. And I remember just looking at myself and crying. And
Was that a positive, like happy cry or a sad cry? What was the
no,
emotion?
I couldn't recognize myself. You spend so much time looking at yourself for so long and knowing your body. And I realized that the person that I was looking at on the, other side of the reflection just wasn't me. And also represented a version of myself that was fleeting, something that I wanted to be sometimes. And I didn't realize that when I went into the surgery, that was going to be me all the time.
Mm.
And not having the choice to move from that form to this one, I was restricted. And so immediately realized I couldn't breathe as well. My capacity just was shortened and or decreased. And I had rippling immediately as soon as I took off my bandages. I have what you call a double bubble, which is where the implant goes beneath your natural fold. So you essentially have two folds. And this one is rock solid because you have an implant, no fat, and then you have yours. So it can look pretty bizarre. And there you go. Just added another layer of insecurity. I was like, well, they only look good from this angle and, or whatever. And this angle, I don't want anyone to see. So just another layer of insecurity.
Right.
And I knew immediately I wanted to get them out, but I kept them in for a while. And it took me until, I guess, about 3 years ago to get what I thought was going to be my full explant and get them out completely. But the doctor said my skin had been stretched out for so long that it was a better idea to put a really small implant in, allow my skin to shrink back while he revises the fold, essentially to like bring my fold back up to where it was, heal, and then just take them out when I'm ready after that, after a year or so. So that's where I'm at. And I had COVID, or I got sick. I had a viral infection. I don't know what we can say out here, but I had it. And so it delayed my surgery a little bit. So next month, if everything goes to plan, I'll be getting them out completely.
Wow. So it's fascinating that the moment you saw the way you looked after your implants, that you immediately had this feeling of sadness or regret, or maybe just a lot of emotions, just knowing all that you were thinking that, hey, if I get these implants, then I'll be happy, then I'll feel secure and confident. And then just realizing that that wasn't the answer. That's really fascinating, because I think a lot of women do struggle with feeling confident with their breasts, and I think it's helpful for people to hear stories like this, that it isn't always gonna just fix the solution, fix your insecurities.
Right. Yeah. And I think too, one other thing that it's taken me this long in life to realize, obviously, as I'm becoming more of age to, or already am at the age to have a child, I see them as a vessel for health for my child. They have a purpose um,
Aesthetic.
beyond feeling confident and feeling sexy, and
Yeah.
they give life literally. And I'm so grateful to even have breasts at all. There are people who wish, that they had an A cup, or just nipples at the very, least, literally women out there. And so I'm so grateful to have them. And so for me, this word might be extremely, um, I guess, alarming, or it might hit people in a certain way, triggering. But to me, what I have done to myself since in my teens, whether it be my breast implants, or trying lip injections to try to fix this lip issue that I had, in order to try to, like, as the doctor said, it'll lift your lip. Well, it didn't. It made it heavier. It was terrible, and I had to dissolve them. Doing all these things to myself, I realized that the word that kept coming up to me was, I'm mutilating myself. And again, that might be a really triggering word for people, and they might not resonate with that. And I completely understand, but this is the way that I feel. And my body is so sacred. All of ours are. And I don't want to do any of that again. I've done enough of that to realize that it hits me in a different way now, and I don't want to cut her open anymore. I don't want to do anything else. I want to know who I actually am, because I think I know we're going to talk about this probably, but like with the introduction of filters and all of these different things, we really are losing ourselves. We're becoming more familiar with a filtered version of ourselves, an edited version. And it doesn't just have to be physical, it can literally be in our movements, right? Like a camera goes on, we start to act different. We're aware. And I don't want to lose our true essence, whether it be in this physical form or the way that we move in life. I want to know who I really am.
Yeah, and it sounds like the way that you live your life and the evolution that you've had throughout your journey, that you really live true to your convictions. So this is like that next step to like living true to your convictions, you know, like from quitting the modeling industry because of fast fashion to your ethical vegan story to now this, like you're sharing such a powerful message about loving who you are. And like you said, using a word that, you know, might feel extreme to some, but like not mutilating ourselves and not filtering. Yes, I'm so excited to get into the topic of face filters because sometimes it feels like there are very few people who are wanting to not use them. If I don't
Mm.
know if that's the best way to say it, but it feels like kind of lonely sometimes. Like most
Yeah.
people, almost everyone is using them. It completely transforms the way that we're seeing, the way that we're quote unquote supposed to look. And I think it's causing a lot of insecurities. And especially it makes me think about young teenage girls and boys, like, and
Boys too,
how,
yeah.
yeah, how they're seeing that they think women or girls are supposed to look like, or even just if they're using face filters on themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's get into that then about face filters.
But first, let's put a face filter on while we talk.
Yeah, yeah, right. Seriously. No, seriously. I mean, I've talked about this multiple times on my YouTube channel and on my Instagram. I'm like, please guys, can we all just collectively stop using face filters? And I think some people try to equate and say like, "Oh, well, it's just another step to like edited photos." But I
Mm,
really, really beg to differ. A lot of times photography is very art style. When it comes to something like face filters in video, and you're smoothing your skin and making your skin look younger, or even your
hmm.
lips more plumped, or your
Yeah.
eyes bigger, like it does so much. And sometimes when I'm seeing someone use a face filter on Instagram and I'll click it and be like, well, how strong is this filter? And then put it on myself and I'm like, holy crap, it doesn't even look
Yeah.
like me. So I'm like, I really don't even know what this person looks like.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I think in this world, we should always, we should lead with choice. No matter if something resonates with us or doesn't, or we find it to be an issue or not. I think we will encourage more people through education, through conversations, through being more raw, real, vulnerable, to move away from certain things versus just shutting them down. And I
I
think we're
agree.
seeing that in a lot in this world, right? Like instead of opening up different, you know, paths and coming up with different solutions for things, it's just we're going to just shut this down, and that's the way it is. And I don't think that's helpful for anybody.
Yeah.
So when it comes to face filters, I used to use them for like skits. So I loved it when on Snapchat they had like the little mouse or the little bee. And I would just use those because it would alter your voice too. And I thought it was so much fun. But I never really used it for anything other than that. I dabble a few times, like when I first moved to LA in the filters, but I realized it was having a negative impact on me. And
Yeah,
I
same.
also didn't realize that it was at the beginning, it would hit like a few different things, and it would make your eyes just a little bit, more pulled back, and your lips just a little bit bigger, and your nose just a little bit smaller. And I didn't realize that was happening because sometimes I would use the filters after I'd come back from a day of work from modeling. So I'd have like all that makeup on. But I realized when I had my raw face that it was pulling back, certain areas of the face. And it really just kind of correlated with the idea of beauty in that moment in time, right? Which was having bigger lips, smaller nose, and more of a cat eye. So it was introducing this idea of ourselves to ourselves, and conditioning us in a way, I guess, and or what is it called, grooming. And so I stopped using them, and then over the course of years until now, I see people using them more and more, to where when I'm clicking on stories, I'm just like waiting to see their actual face. I'm like,
Yeah.
where are you?
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, again, choice, do whatever you want, but I think it's extremely harmful, because it's been harmful to me. I have sisters, and I've had them make comments about their features, and it, you know, makes my heart break in a million different pieces. And um, it's really, these filters, I'm noticing, they are fixating on certain features, and it's this obsession with like a smaller nose and bigger lips and your eyes pulled back and, you know, clear skin and colored eyes. And I just feel like no matter how much we engage with it or don't, you know, say we don't have a problem with it or not, I think the best thing for everyone is to really pull back and then ask ourselves, why do we even engage in it sometimes? Why?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, I think that a lot of times people feel insecure. Like we said, most people have their own set of insecurities, and it can be hard for people to put their face out into the world like that. And this just helps give them that extra layer of comfort and to not
mhm.
feel as secure. And so it seems innocent enough. And I agree with you. It should totally be a choice. I think education is the key, because I think a lot of people just really aren't considering the effects that this could be having, not only on themselves, but on their children as their children get
Mhm.
older, and that this becomes like the only norm. I mean, just imagine how in high school we already had our own insecurities in the way that we looked, and just imagine everybody online using these filters, and then you yourself as a teenager starting to use these filters with social media, and then you go back and look at your face that you were already insecure about, and it just exasperates it tenfold.
Yeah.
And I think it starts to make this, like you said, almost like a one singular look of beauty. Like there's only one type of beautiful, and this is it. And I just have so many problems with it.
Yeah. Well, I started to see in modeling something that was really interesting, was we became more inclusive, right, with different kinds of bodies, which is a beautiful thing. And in the same breath, we still did all of the same things that we did to one body type to another. So like still airbrushed, still pulled in the waist and made the hips bigger, and still did all of these things. And I really don't understand what the obsession with this ratio of, um, you know, certain parts of our body to the other certain parts of our body. I don't know why it exists. Um, because seeing so many different kinds of bodies in this industry and seeing people literally naked next to me, I've really just, I have such an appreciation for diversity and what we really look like. And so when I see these people who represent more inclusive ways of, you know, modeling and just different bodies and different ideas of beauty, but are still doing the same things, it breaks my heart as well, because it's essentially the same thing, um, just looks a little bit different. So I hope that we move away from the filters. I hope we move away from editing ourselves and, you know, making our proportions different, um, because what it is essentially teeing up is for us to create an avatar for ourselves, which we're now moving into this digital world, right? Like you won't even just to be able to alter your physical appearance in this reality and show up a certain way, but you'll now be able to put that into a tech version of yourself. And then, hey, if you don't even want to be yourself at all, why don't you just build yourself up from, you know, the ground up? So I think it's like introduced us into this way of thinking, so that when by the time that happens, we're already ready for it. We've been groomed for this all
Yeah.
along. And it's this disconnection to who we truly are, how we were born into this world. And so, yeah, I don't think we really have time to keep doing things like this at this point.
Yeah. And now a few words from our sponsor who helps make this show possible. Whenever guests stay in our home, they are always amazed after their first night of sleep and ask where the bedding is from, because it's so incredibly soft. I tell them it's from Buffy, and they're pleasantly surprised to hear the bedding is sustainably made from eucalyptus. The bedding industry has a huge impact on the environment, but Buffy decided to change that. Their products are made using only renewable and recycled materials, which makes them as soft on the planet as they are on your bed. Their debut product, the Cloud Comforter, is covered in super soft eucalyptus fabric and filled with fluffy fiber made from 100% recycled bottles. It has over 18,000 five-star reviews, and it is hands down the best comforter I've ever slept with. The cloud comforter is ultra breathable, softer than cotton, and it keeps you at the perfect temperature to feel cozy without overheating. And my husband can attest to this. Plus, it's hypoallergenic and also machine washable. The average down comforter harms 12 geese, but Buffy's comforter is cruelty free. It feels even softer than down while keeping about 50 bottles out of landfills and oceans. And eucalyptus uses 10 times less water than cotton to grow. So use my code ELLEN for $20 off orders over $80. You can try a comforter in your own bed for free. If you don't love it, return it at no cost. And it makes me think of a few other things as well. Because when you think about the insecurities that people have, let's just talk about social media because that's where the face filters are. There are a lot of people tearing down other people and criticizing the way that they look. Like if we're going to talk about specifically appearance. So on top of it, like if we're collectively educating about like the importance and how helpful it would be to just share your true self, there's also the other side of like if you're on the other receiving end, to love and appreciate everybody's beauty and how different they are and love their wrinkles and love their differences and not criticize or be quick to judge the way someone looks like over a screen, because that also like creates insecurities and is one of the reasons why maybe women are feeling, well, I just want to put this filter on so people aren't going to like pick apart my appearance. Mm-hmm. And this is for even people who are choosing the face filters that aren't changing maybe their physical appearance with their eyes and nose, like you said, but even just smoothing the skin. Mm-hmm. I feel like even just that, like if we could all just see each other for who we are, we would feel less insecure, because right now everyone's seeing everyone, as you say, online. You're looking for, where are you really? Like, right. When are you going to show your real face? But because everyone's only seeing this like smooth, not realistic look of what no one actually looks like in real life, then it just makes you feel even more insecure about the way you look like when you go and look in the mirror. And it's like this never ending cycle.
Right. And I think what you just brought up is it's a responsibility to pass it along in a way, right? Like if you know that, which a lot of people don't in the moment when they're getting plastic surgery and they're doing all of these things. And I mean, like, you know, I'm not here to bash plastic surgery. I think if you want to do something, again, having that choice to do it, that's fine. But for me, when I did all of these things to myself, I didn't realize, because I hadn't done the proper healing and I wasn't in the right state of mind. And I was also just really young. I didn't realize that I was encouraging other people to do the same thing. And so it's difficult to tell people in that headspace, you know, look what you're doing, or look at the knock-on effects of this that can have to other people, because we're so worried about ourselves. We're dealing with so many things ourselves. But when you have some time to sit in it and you step back and you get a little bit older and you look back, sometimes the damage is already done. So I hope we could just get ahead of that. And it might mean, you know, a bit of just allowing more of the things that you want to see in this world into your life. So you can't change what people are going to do to their bodies. And quite frankly, you shouldn't be able to. If someone wants to modify themselves and they want to do X, Y, and Z, let them do that. But that doesn't mean that you have to follow them. That doesn't mean that you have to hang out with them. It doesn't mean that you have to support the businesses that they work for, or whatever, you know, however it speaks to you. If you don't want to see more of that in the world, then don't contribute to it. And it really starts with yourself. So if you want to see more real in the world, you have to, you know, be that yourself. And that's part of why I've really just kind of transformed everything in my life in order to kind of reflect and echo that message, whether it be the way that I film my YouTube videos now or how I'm physically showing up to this world. I just want more of the real. And I'm grateful that the things that I've done are reversible. I cannot imagine what it would feel like doing a bit of internal work and then not being able to reverse the things that, you know, you've done to yourself. Truly could not imagine how hard that would be.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that would be super difficult. Thankfully, it's good, obviously, like you said, that you are able to change that. And I think that's one reason why so many people resonate so much with what you're sharing, because you're being so authentic and promoting such a valuable message. Because like you said, people should be able to do whatever they want to their bodies. But there's this also beautiful aspect to how important and influential it is to share, like what you just said about how you see women, like when you would all stand naked in your modeling industry, and you're like, I see all of that as beautiful, all the different shapes and sizes, the way we naturally look without the filters, without the shaping of the faces and the bodies.
Yeah.
And the more people hear that, because really the echo really influences people, just like the way that magazines influence people and social media, it changes your perception. So if we could go that way and the other route where appreciating the way that we look naturally, that would create generational positive effect. Because
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I
it makes
think
me think.
the more that we dive into our internal self, like if we realize that our physical form makes up, a part of the pie, but that's not just who we are. And I think when we think about ourselves, if someone were to say, imagine yourself, we immediately think about our physical appearance. We imagine what we physically look like. And I would like to see, when we reflect on who we are, characteristics come to mind, the things about ourselves that are intangible. And if we lead with that, then I think we'll be a world that leads with more of a, more philosophy than we do symbols. There's a real big coupling of people who kind of, uh, think with symbols and like, labels and things like that. And it's, to me, it's attached to physical. It's a representation of something, just like you are for all that makes you up. So I think if we can kind of get away from that and start to lead more with philosophy, then I think we'll be in a better position to heal that side of things as well. So again, going into yourself to do the internal work, I think it's going to have a knock-on effect for so many other things, not just how we view ourselves in the mirror. So I think we have to go there, but sometimes it's a really scary place for people. I know it was for me. I knew if I went to the deepest parts of what is me, I was going to have to deal with my trauma. I was going to have to relive things. I was going to have to be honest with myself. And I would have to eventually accept myself. And that's a big pill to swallow for a lot of people. And uh, I'm here to say, though, that it's a much better way to live, and it's easier, and it takes off the pressure. And I hope, yeah, I hope that we can start moving through life with that a little bit more.
Absolutely. And especially this message is important for mothers, I think, because like you said earlier, when you were in high school, you were influenced even by your friends' mothers
Mm-hmm.
and the surgery that they might have had or the lack of confidence that they had. And something that I've seen a lot, a wonderful message that I see in like the parenting community is that it's common for parents to feel insecure to take pictures with their kids because they don't feel confident
Oh,
themselves. And then the message is like, just take the picture with your kid because down the road, you guys are all going to be so grateful you had that picture. And I guarantee 20 years later, you're going to look back and be like, I looked so fantastic. What was I even thinking? Like, why was I so insecure?
right.
And then right. And then that other layer of just the internal work that when we're internally confident in who we are, what we're teaching our children is just such an invaluable lesson for them to see their essence and not to be obsessed with the way they look.
Right.
I was listening to this one talk that Dr. Shefali Saberi, she's a parenting author, had done on Oprah. This was before I did my episode with her. And someone had asked her a question about, what do I say to my kid? My kid says, I feel ugly. I'm so ugly. And Dr. Shefali was like, well, our first impulse is to say, no, you're not. You're so
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. You're so beautiful, because we want them to feel beautiful. And she's like, but what you really should say is, well, I don't know what this ugly or beautiful thing is. I don't play that game. But what I really see is your essence
Mm.
and who you are inside. And that is beautiful. And I
That's
was like,
so
wow, that's
amazing.
so amazing. Something that most of us would never think of because we're like, oh no, no, hide the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you're insecure. No, you're beautiful, you're beautiful. And she's like, if you ever ask your kid, when I tell you you're beautiful when you feel ugly, does that make you feel beautiful? And they say no, it doesn't,
Right.
because they still feel ugly inside because they have to learn to love who they are inside, and that's what makes them beautiful.
And that is, I mean, that is what's beautiful, right? Like you can meet so many people, but really what will resonate with you is how they treated you, how they made you feel. And that to me is, that's beautiful. So, there's beautiful people
Totally.
walking around every day that we can be attracted to, or that we might even find ourselves going, oh, like I wish, I had more of that, or whatever it is. But really, the true beauty in this world is how we show up, and how we contribute, and how we make again, people feel. So the earlier we can really dial in that message to children, the better off we're going to have adults when they grow up. So I think it's just
Yeah, it's a
planting those
yes.
seeds. And it's funny too, because just in terms of like how everything is, it differs. You have your perception about things and I have mine. And there's one thing that I just, it bugs me a bit, because I see it as so beautiful and it's one of people's biggest insecurities. So, um, when it comes to people's noses, I notice a lot of women who have these like beautiful, strong, prominent noses are some of the ones that have the biggest insecurities. And I don't know how correct it is to, just tell someone, I think your strong, prominent, beautiful nose is, perfect and you should never mess with it. Obviously, people should be able to do whatever they want. But it to me is a shame because I think back to like different times. Like imagine if we were in, I don't know, just a different time in history. Maybe that part of their face, that feature would be considered, the just the most beautiful. And so for me, specifically with noses, when I see girls, women who have this prominent nose that might even have like a bit of a curve here, I immediately correlate people to animals. And so I see like a beautiful bird, like this free flying bird with like this just like strong face. And again, that might even that might not be what people want to hear, but uh, I see it as a symbol of like strength and beauty. And so yeah, the nose thing really gets to me. I love strong noses. I think they're beautiful. And it's like, and I
I'm
don't
so
have
glad you
one.
brought
I
that
have a
up.
really like kind of turned up little pinchy nose, and I love I love different kinds of noses. So
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I do want to get into the topic of like cosmetic and plastic
mm,
surgery on the face and and the body too. But I think a lot of times someone might say, well, what about someone with like a really extreme
mm,
feature, like a really large nose or something that really stands out? And the way that you described that was so beautiful because it really goes back to the mindset. And if your insecurities are based on what the world sees about a large nose, because the world might see, or you might think the world might see it as something negative or extreme or not normal. But when it's described in that way, if we as a collective start looking at our differences as
hmm,
beautiful, and even things like the more extreme something could be, or quote unquote extreme, like you said, prominent, strong,
yeah,
could,
just larger, more prominent.
yeah, that it
Yeah,
could be considered like just this strong eagle, or like a goddess that, like you said, back in the day might be considered
yeah,
like a princess type of strong look.
yeah. We don't have to act like things aren't there, right? Like people say, I don't see color,
Right.
or no, it's not that big, or whatever. No, say the reality that we're living in. I mean, let's not create
Yeah.
this fantasy world. Uh, I don't want anyone to ever tell me if I'm looking at my backside, be like, your butt is just the biggest thing I've ever seen. Like, come on, just be a little real with me. But instead of changing this reality that we live in, let's just love it more. Let's just appreciate it more. Let's celebrate it more. I can't wait for my child to come to me with something that they've noticed about themselves, and us freaking celebrate it. Like,
Yes.
I cannot wait for that moment to have that opportunity to turn something on its head and say, we're not going to make that an insecurity. We're going to make that a part of you to celebrate every single
Yeah,
day.
because if we
So,
really did celebrate it as a collective, then we would have way less insecurities within these extreme features, or even features that are not prominent like that. Like, because so many people have
right.
these insecurities of things that nobody else would even consider. You have this insecurity, like the thing with your smile. That's not something I would ever have even comprehended an insecurity about. So
I know it's a little crazy.
it's why it just goes to show how much the messaging that we put across is so powerful. It really does influence people, and so that's why I just love. So that's why I was so excited to sit down with you, because I see the things that you're sharing, and I'm like, this is really powerful stuff. It really does help people to feel more confident in who they are and to see the beauty in everything and who they are inside. So yeah. So let's get into a little bit about what you think about cosmetic and plastic surgery overall, because I loved in your post when you were talking about how we were going to do an episode that you said It feels so liberating to be able to speak freely about something so demonized and protected at the same time.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, uh, we always should have the freedom to speak about something. And I guess it was me holding myself back, thinking that I couldn't speak about something. And I think that comes from, again, being in an industry where people surrounding me have a lot of things done to themselves. I had things done to myself. I have things done to myself. And I feel like people feel it's a direct attack on them if you speak about something. That's like saying, if you, I don't know, you don't like orange juice, but the person next to you does. They I can't believe, I like orange juice. So it's like, we don't need to go there. We can just have a conversation. But one, I felt like because it was such a prickly, touchy, and sensitive topic, I didn't want to deepen the damage of body insecurity even more, because I know if someone were to have spoken about certain things to me where I was in a certain mindset, it might have made me angry, resentful, make me get more things, who knows. So I've always been really weary about that. But also, I think it's really important just to talk about it as well, because the reality is something is going to negatively impact somebody no matter what you do. You can't have a 100% positive outcome all of the time. And in fear of that, we can't just sit still and be stagnant. Otherwise, we're not living. And so just I thought it was a good time as I was getting them out to, speak about it and speak freely, because it's demonized and it's also protected in the same breath. And it's interesting because it's almost like this thing people don't want to own up to, they don't want to talk about. But when other people have it and people go after them, they're like, don't talk about them like that. But I don't think the same protection is given to people who are told you should get this done, or you would look better if you had, these things done, or if you looked a different way. So I think we just need more of that. And that starts again by just being more real about it. When it comes to the entire industry, I think it's extremely helpful for a lot of people. Maybe even if you get something done to yourself and you end up reversing it later, maybe it helps you get to that point to realize that you don't need these things. So I don't want to bash this industry that's done a tremendous amount of good for people. Also, that helps burn victims have skin grafts so they can be able to live normal again. Help with people who were just born, with a deformity, a missing an eye or whatever it is, um, or simply just have something wrong where they feel uncomfortable in their body every single day and need some kind of transplant. So this industry is very necessary and it's beautiful and it does so much good. I think it's in its application, just like everything else. And so we have to be having more conversations around that versus just this industry as a whole. It's just in its use. How are we using it? How are we talking about it?
Yes, and how is it becoming normalized, and how common
Mm,
it's becoming? So, do you feel like body dysmorphia might be exasperated these days because cosmetic and plastic surgery has become so common and because of things like face filters?
absolutely. I think, because I've gone through it, one, myself, but two, I've had friends and I've just been around enough people to see when you get one thing done to yourself, it doesn't stop there. It keeps going. And we're just essentially upgrading ourselves into oblivion. And essentially, what we're doing is also just, we're running away from aging and we're running away from ourselves. And I think they're directly related. And I think there's always going to be a bit of it naturally, because as human beings, we compare. I can't remember where I read this, but I think it was with monkeys, where we're one of the only animals on planet Earth that compares and can get like, uh, I don't know if the right word, but it's we compare and we can get down on ourselves for that. And so it's unique maybe to our species or a few others, but because we have that, we should be aware of it and move forward in life, trying to, keep that in check a bit. And so when you start adding in all these other factors, it's only going to make things worse. But I think we also, as human beings in this new world that we live in, we have to adjust and keep moving forward. I don't want to take away things again, like I've said. I just think we need to adjust, create more conversations surrounding the things that we want to see, and hopefully that will encourage people to engage in certain things for the right reasons, not just step away from them, but just think a little bit more about it before they do things. Um, but I can say that for me personally, taking these things out of my body, dissolving certain things, dissolving the lip fillers, and not using face filters has dramatically improved my quality of life, my mental state, and the way that I actually treat other people. I mean, the knock-on effect is just endless, and it's a better way to live.
Yeah, I totally agree. It comes down to really loving yourself for who you are and not chasing this unattainable, quote unquote, ideal version of beauty that just doesn't exist, and how we're all just so different. So, do you feel like these conversations that you've had within yourself from your transformation, how has that played out with your conversations in your real life with like your friends and your family?
Well, my family, it's a pretty short conversation. It's um, okay, cool, like it's just kind of like that. My dad's from Mexico, and so we're like traditional in certain ways, and so he doesn't want to discuss my body. My dad loves me for who I am, and he doesn't care about any of that. So when I was getting things in, he whatever, and when I was getting them out, whatever. How are you doing, Sophia? That's what I want to know. And so I appreciate that because it puts less emphasis on it, and then allows me to not feel like I have to explain myself out of something. He knows my essence, so that's never really affected anything. With my mom too, she was really worried in the beginning when I was doing things and voiced her opinion, and I'm so grateful that she did. And that's always stuck with me. And as I've come back to myself over the years, she's just so happy. So it's been good in the family side of things. With friends, it's been difficult. I've lost a few friends over it because as I'm talking about getting things out, they're moving towards getting things in and changing themselves. And they felt like it was a direct attack on them. And, by asking me, do you think this would look good? And me saying, no, I think you're beautiful the way you are, that started to become like an attack on them. And so it's really difficult because you're dealing with so many factors. It's not just plastic surgery or no plastic surgery. It's what someone's going through mentally, and there's a lot of projection of different things into this specific topic. But I yeah, I've lost friends. I've had friends think that because I was taking this journey in my life, or taking this path, that I felt like I was better in some way, and it spoke from like a place of superiority, which can already seem like that if you're vegan, right? If you do certain things in your life. And so I've just been really hyper aware of that, and that's why I didn't speak about it for a long time, because I don't want anyone to ever think that because my story goes this way and I'm speaking about it, that I'm casting a shadow on anybody who's going through their own. And so I think now I've just chosen to do it, one, because I'm in the right headspace to speak about it and I'm getting them out, but also because I think I can put it to words, whereas before I was younger and still learning how to convey my thoughts. So
Yeah, it's interesting how the human psyche plays out when you're sharing your own journey, that some people will take it in like either a way to just receive it and say, look, this is what they're going through, be inspired, or just keep doing your own thing, or take it as a personal attack. And
right.
it makes me think of just my friendships in our mom circle. I have multiple friends who have implants, or a couple friends who had implants and then got them taken out. And then
Mhm.
there's some mom friends who are totally confident in our saggy post breastfeeding breasts. And then there's a couple who are just like, nah, I really want to get implants or a breast lift because my breasts are so saggy. And it brings me back to this time I was talking to, or a group of us were talking to our friend who has had, a lot of children and breastfed for many, many years. And she's like, look, like my breasts are so saggy now. I should do something about it. And we're like, look at my breasts too. We're all showing each other our breasts. I'm like, this is all of us. We all have breasts like this because this is what happens after you nourish your child, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And we should all love it and just find it just this amazing, incredible thing that we were able to nourish our child this way. And
Yeah.
just encouraging our friends to be like, You are beautiful just the way that you are. Look, I look just like you. These images you're seeing on a screen of like these perfect, immaculate breasts, like this is not how reality is unless you change
Yeah.
something, right? Through surgery. So, like, just that encouragement of like, I'm literally showing her and comparing. She's like, no, yours aren't as saggy. I'm like, they are. Trust me. From
It's
breastfeeding.
great. It's just, yeah, I think that first of all, that's so helpful and that's incredible because the more I think we do things like that, the better off everyone's going to be. And the more, but I think it's important that you do things like that because you just paint a better picture of what this reality looks like. And um, I know because I've worked with people for so long that have a lot of things done to themselves, again, me as well. Um, the surgeries just keep going and keep going for a lot of people, and they are incredibly unhappy and they're dealing with financial issues because they can't figure out how they're going to pay for the next surgery to upkeep, or the maintenance on it just gets pretty can get pretty crazy for some things. And so it's just all these other added levels of stress. And um, I used to I used to say that, with one of my friends specifically, you're so beautiful, when she had all these things done to herself. And I wish I would have actually uh, dialed in more to the message of, I don't need to feel bad for not thinking that a synthetic version of yourself or a modified version of yourself is less beautiful than the real one. Like, I don't want to feel bad for saying that you came into this world perfect. I don't think anyone should feel bad for that. And I think it's almost been like reversed, right? Like, it's been projected and then bounced back in order to put the blame on the person who loves someone for just the way that they are. And it shouldn't be that way. But again, if
Right.
someone's doing that to you, if you're aware of that, you can be kind to them and know that it's not them speaking, they're projecting something. But I wish I had more of that, of a mindset, years ago when I was dealing with the situation, because I think I could have put things much better, could have been more eloquent about it, and I could have really allowed them to understand that I just thought they were beautiful just the way that they were. So, yeah, I think things like that are important. Conversations like this are important. And again, do whatever you want. I don't think we need to limit what people do. I think we just have to encourage things for the right reasons. So,
Yeah, and just, like you've practiced multiple times in this conversation that like, if you choose to do that, like and you're happy with it, more power to you. Like you can do that. And like, accepting our friends even if we wouldn't do those things ourselves, but on top of that adding that like I think you were beautiful even before that,
yeah.
and that you didn't need that. And that's totally okay.
Yeah, because it could be tricky, right? Like, imagine if someone's sitting across from you and saying, "How does this look after just getting something done?" It's extremely difficult to you're thinking of a million things. Well, I thought that they were beautiful before, but then you don't want to make them feel like this, doesn't look appealing, like they're some kind of monster now or whatever. So, like, it puts all of this pressure on the person. And I think we should start having more conversations about how to even, um, how to interact in that sense, and what are the, I guess, what feels right to say, and can we just say those things freely without having to think of an angle. I think that would be
Right.
really helpful too. Again, all in an effort to remind someone that they're beautiful and their essence speaks louder than their physical form. So,
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. So, can we pivot a little bit and talk about your ethical vegan story?
yeah.
And yeah, how has becoming vegan changed you, and what brought you to it?
So I was vegetarian growing up, I guess from about the age of like 7 to 13. I know 13 is when it stopped. So from a young age, I was always outside digging for worms and playing with plants and just looking at the small details of life. Everybody was kind of focused on like the dogs and the cats and stuff, which I always had around and I loved them. But I was so interested and fascinated by just the things that we can miss if we move too quickly. So I fell in love with the world around me, the natural world around me. And at about 7, my mom, we were eating something, and I asked her what I was eating. She was honest with me about it being an animal. And I don't think it was a very long conversation. It was just, I don't want to eat this. And she said, okay. And so right then and there, she allowed me to be vegetarian. She cooked for me vegetarian. And she was like pescatarian. So every now and again, we would have like some fish and stuff like that. But just two veggie chicks just having a good time in the middle of Texas, of all places. So I know it was a little difficult. But at 13, I had girls at a slumber party. Everyone knew I was vegetarian, and they gave me, crap for it. So they stuck ham underneath the cheese on the pizza that I was eating. So when I bit into it, I didn't know I had eaten ham. And I so desperately wanted to be accepted with these group of girls, and just wanted to be a part of a friend group, uh, neglecting to see that I had so many other people who wanted to be my friend. I just wanted to be friends with the popular girls. I wanted to be accepted. I didn't want to be known as the girl with hairy arms and a mustache, because weren't many people who looked like me in that area. So I just knew I had a goal, and I was going for it. And so being at the slumber party and having that situation happen, and them laughing and me figuring out what they did, in that moment, I chose to laugh it off, act like it was no big deal. And it was almost um, like the gateway, the in order to become a part of their friend group. So I stopped being vegetarian that day and started eating animals, and realized that there was also like this camaraderie that came with it. I was the talk around school for a little bit. Oh, Sophie's not vegetarian anymore. Ooh, she's cool now or whatever. So um, that kind of ushered in this um, chapter of Sophia, where I realized by being big and bad, and to me, um, mowing down the small things and overlooking those things, by being less compassionate, it allowed me to be more cool and more liked by certain people. So this had a pour over effect into all other areas of my life. I started to act this way, was bullied for a while, so I became the bully. Um, and yeah, it negatively impacted my entire life by eating animals again. It just was awful. My health got terrible, got so many health issues: PCOS, endometriosis, um, had sleeping issues, terrible anxiety, mood issues, depression, cystic acne. The list just goes on and on. And then at about 18, 19, I saw my footage from my first factory farm on social media. It was a dairy farm, and it stopped me in my tracks. It was as if I had just been living life at a faster pace, and then in that specific moment, and I hit a wall, and it made me stop. And I cried. I kept watching this footage over and over and over again. It was of a dairy cow who was getting lifted up by a crane and then thrown into a dumpster alive. And it changed my life forever, just that piece of footage, because I was vegetarian for so long. I was like, what? What do you mean? Maybe the meat industry, but not the dairy industry. So I decided that I needed to figure this out for myself. You have so many people who tell you it's this way. No, it's this way. Well, the easiest way to kind of cut through all of that is just to see it for yourself. So I've talked about this story before, and I can't get into the details, but I got into a factory farm, and it was a chicken factory farm, and it was a humane certified, organic, free range. Every single label that, they put on these things, that's where I went. And I sat there for hours, and I realized that hell is a place on earth for these individuals, and we're the ones creating it for them. So ironic, because all we do is talk about, the hell for us and the other side of things, and we're so worried about ourselves, but we're doing it to an entire species. So after that day, after sitting with those chickens, I, seeing tons dead on the ground, and mutations, hearts beating out of their chests, like the worst things I've ever seen, I realized I needed to go vegan. So I set a path to go vegan, and going through vegetarianism again, or pescatarian to vegetarian to vegan, um, and just set the goal and stuck to it. And I moved to LA and decided to immerse myself into animal rights. And part of that was just by me going to these factory farms, filming. For a long time, I couldn't talk about it because obvious reasons and stuff like that. And I was really worried. I did a lot of stuff on my own. Some people go with big groups, and I would just go by myself and just do the
Wow.
thing. And yeah, it changed my life, and it added a layer of purpose, which I think we're all looking for in this life. We're looking for the reason why we're here, and for me, that was it. Until I had my mom and my sisters and my brother and my family, but until or I guess nothing had happened after family to really give me an added layer of purpose, and that was my driving factor ever since. So it's been a beautiful journey. And in regards to all my health issues, it's just cleaned it all up. It's nothing I ever asked for from veganism. I certainly didn't go into it for health reasons, and it's been the biggest blessing that I never asked for, and I owe it to the animals.
Wow, that's an incredible story. Like the fact that you chose to go see it for yourself as opposed to just, seeing the images online. You're like, I need to see what's
Mm.
the most quote unquote ethical, humane, free range, and what does that look like? And can
Right,
that
because
be
if we can see
justified?
that, you can only imagine what the other side of that looks like. If that side of the spectrum, the good side, is horrific, well, you have all your answers right there.
Right. So, how many years have you been vegan now?
I've been vegan for over 6 years, I guess now.
That's awesome. And how has
Yeah.
that shifted what you're doing with your work and your kind of life's passion? Because you quit modeling, you have the social media, and now you've created Elbows on the Table. Can you tell us about
Mm.
that and what's going on with that?
Yeah. So originally, when I was in Texas, I was going to school. The path was to be a doctor, and a lot of things happened that could be a whole nother topic of conversation in pursuit of that I decided this kind of doctor isn't for me. And so, or becoming this kind of doctor in this industry isn't for me. So I quit that, and I really moved to LA, honestly, because I was like, all of these headquarters for these animal rights organizations are there. And if I just put myself there, I'll figure it out. Even if I don't like work for them or whatever it is, I'll be in the vicinity. And I think proximity creates waves, and just by putting yourself somewhere, and it did. And so, um, by becoming vegan, cleared up my health issues. Um, it it helped with my relationships and my family, with friends, connecting with people. One thing it really did was helped me speak. So I historically have always connected to animals and insects and little things far more than I ever have with people. And I think my whole life has been me trying to figure out how to interact and how to connect and how to be accepted. And through the animals, having to now speak for them. I've elected myself to be a representative of these creatures who are so exploited. It's allowed me to refine my skills to speak for them to people. So it's helped me in just relationships that way, and connecting on that level. So I appreciate it for that. And it's it's opened up this whole new world of how can you be an activist in this space. You can go, and you can go into factory farms, you can remove animals, you can not remove them, save them. You can go out and protest with signs, you can be a part of the legislative side of things. You can post things on Instagram, horrific images, and make your whole account just about the truth behind this industry. But there's a lot more to it too. You can be an activist by showing people how to eat plant-based food and encouraging them through the food side of things. Then all of a sudden they've cleared up their health issues, and they're like, wait, there's more good to this than just creating less chaos for animals in the world. So I found a pocket that I'm really happy with food, and I've always loved to create in the kitchen, and it's just kind of the next step for me. And also, food is medicine. So while yes, I didn't graduate and become an MD, food 3 times a day, I mean, that's it right there. I think that's a huge portion of health. And so, um, hopefully it'll encourage people to be healthier. And now with the food stuff, I'm kind of cleaning up my skills with Matthew Kinney. So I'm going to FFI. I'm just refining my skill set there. So that'll hopefully open up the next wave of opening up something one day and having my own product. And then I'm also going back to school to be a naturopathic doctor. So
Wow, that's so awesome. You're doing so many things. And
I'm just juggling.
yeah, how many things can I add to this?
Yeah, I'm juggling all those things and my silicone implants I've just removed. I'm just like,
Just add that to the juggle.
yeah,
That's so funny. I also know that you're really passionate about like getting closer to nature, growing more of your own food as much as
yeah,
possible. And to me, it feels all interconnected. Like you said, there's more than one reason to eat vegan. And not only are we lessening the suffering on animals, but it's better for our health and also the environment. So to me, this whole conversation does feel connected somehow, like being a steward not only of your own body and inside and how your mind, the information you're giving your mind, but also being a steward of the earth and being a
absolutely.
protector. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I think we all are. And I think we've lost that along the way. There's such a beautiful thing about being able to go inward and have this unique view of life, this experience. Human beings, we operate kind of, from this place, and most animals, they operate, I mean, they see themselves as a part of the whole, and they're hyper aware of the natural elements, and we've become so attached to that. So I think it's just a reattaching to something that's there, that's been silenced and kind of squashed over time. But I look at every single person as that, as a steward to this earth. That some of us just need a little bit more help to be reminded of the confidence that we should all have in touching the ground, getting our hands dirty, putting seeds in the ground, knowing how to, yeah, how to tend to earth, and in turn have it take care of you. I think that there's an absolute relation there, and it's not a coincidence that when you take care and when you put intent into something and when you look after something, it's reciprocated. So Patrice and I, my husband, we're just kind of now making the next steps to find where we want to do that. Is it in Montana, or is it in Costa Rica or Mexico, or is it somewhere completely different? So we're just kind of monitoring things in the world and seeing where we want to set up shop, and hopefully do it with a whole bunch of people too, and create some kind of spread out compound living with communal spaces, and create a proof of concept for this thing that might seem so radical, but I think it's so necessary right now in order to get us back to um, community. We need community.
Yes, absolutely. So it sounds like, is this what you're most excited about right now? Or is there anything else like elbows on the table, potentially leaving LA too? Also, are you
Else
going
on
to,
the table?
yeah. What did I say? Did I say something?
Anything else on the table?
Oh, yeah.
Elbows.
Yes. Anything else on the table that you're doing? Are you going to start a farm sanctuary? I know you
Mm,
mentioned something about that.
yeah,
And do you feel like do you have these goals to maybe start a farm sanctuary and grow food alongside of that? Is that part of what you're
yeah.
passionate about
I
right now?
mean, I volunteered for a while at One Gun Ranch in Malibu. It's a biodynamic farm. It's organic. It's just beautiful, and that's where I actually started to get a bit of inspiration for having animals on site. This idea of being vegan and then just having to like not have animals around on your plot of land, I think is just not for me. It's natural to have an ebb and flow and to have animals, go to the bathroom, drop their feces, and for the ones that create really good compost, utilize that in order to make the most vibrant compost that you can. I don't wish to separate myself from nature and from animals. I wish to find harmony and balance. And so when I saw this happening on One Gun Ranch, I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I want to be doing. So I think in a time where our soil is so depleted by agrochemicals, by even vegetables and fruits with our monocropping, it's just crazy with these GMOs and what they're doing. I know we have a great responsibility to heal the earth, and part of that is by having regenerative farms. And so I think it would be a really cool idea to take all of this barren land, tend to it a bit, get it to a place where we can put an animal sanctuary on top, and the droppings from these animals can help revitalize the soil, because these droppings are healing, especially cow poop. It's a beautiful thing, and so I think there's a way to utilize animals in a way that doesn't exploit them, and I'm trying to find the crossover there, and hopefully, yeah, just help heal the soil. So animal sanctuary, grow our own food, and come up with ways. Patrice and I are really passionate. He's in the ocean side of things, into plastics and stuff. This is actually his bottle. It's the one bottle. It removes ocean-bound plastic when you get one, and then it builds a home out of that plastic for homeless people. So it just does so much good. And we have just kind of come together and just been like, how can we create the most impact? And so we're really passionate people. So we have like tentacles everywhere, and we just need to refine that and figure out what that is. But I want this to be more accessible to everybody. I don't want veganism or having clean drinking water to be a privilege. I want it to be something that is just a basic right for everybody. And so we're looking to, yeah, to really dive into that in the future.
That is so cool. And not just veganism, but like healthy ways of eating plant based and eating vegan, access to
Absolutely.
organic fruits and vegetables. And have you also looked into worm castings? Because that's a lot of what we do here. My uncle,
Really? I didn't know that.
yeah, my uncle was like one of the first people to create to sell worm castings commercially. His
Mm,
product's called Worm Gold. And so I grew up like seeing him working on his like huge worm casting things, and that's what we do here. We do a lot of worm casting bins and putting that into the soil, and it's
beautiful.
so beautiful to have the earthworms into the soil.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, taking it and some kind of like raised level, then integrating it back. So like getting it to a place where it can be, self-sufficient, and then just throwing it in the mix. That's incredible.
It's so
Um,
nutrient rich. The problem
yeah,
is what's so sad is that he's tried so hard to get our government on board with doing that on a wider scale for our soils and the farmers, but there's so much lobbying power within the pesticide industry that it just completely got shut down. They actually kind of went after him too as well for a bit
of
because they
course.
didn't like how much of a threat he was, because he was literally restoring forests like almond tree forests that were like dying. He'd restore it with the worm castings and like, look, we don't need the pesticides. And so he was
And
kind
that's
of
a
a big
bigger
threat.
conversation around corruption,
Totally.
right? I mean, that's a
Yeah.
whole other thing. So there's so many warriors out there like that will never get coverage in any kind of way, and they're still doing this, knowing that they'll never get recognition because they're not doing it for that. And so we have to know more of these people, we have to uplift more of these people, and we have to have this knowledge being passed down to us, because it can stop somewhere if we're not if we're not close to it. And so um yeah, we have got to band together. And if I don't know if you've watched, have you seen Seed?
No, I haven't seen it. I've heard of it, but I
Oh,
haven't
it's
seen it.
so incredible. So I'd encourage you to watch it. It's about exactly that. And since I'm native, it really hit home, because it just talks about, yeah, it's just how the agrochemical industry, pesticide, all of it, whether it's from animal ag or whether it's from GMO oranges, whatever it is, it's all terrible, and it's really hurt people for generations. And so it's it's just it paints a really real picture of what we're dealing with, because it's easier to kind of move through these issues if you know where the enemy is, where the problem is. And so things like this just help clean it up, so where you can go, oh, it's everywhere. Got it.
Yeah,
So
right. And also just seeing how you're taking a personal choice to really integrate it in your life and create impact that way. And then it takes people supporting these people like yourself, starting things like this. And it grows exponentially that way. And it also inspires other people to do the same. So that's
right.
something that we do as well, is like hopefully inspire people to grow more of their own food and just start with anything, even if it's just like a small little square in your garden or even like potted plants on your deck. Like just
Yeah,
start anywhere growing more food.
absolutely. Because what might be really easy for people to do right now, like just having a one little pot on their balcony, might be really difficult for that might be a leap for some people, depending on where they're at in life, and the all the disadvantages they've had from the very beginning. So I want it to be an option for everybody. I want that to be the absolute baseline. Anybody can put a pot on their balcony or in their home, but that's not the case for a lot of people. And so We need
Yeah.
to get there. And if we can't get there, we need to be opening up our resources as a community, and sharing and welcoming people in, because that should be a right in this life.
That's beautiful. Well, you are so inspiring and you're doing so much good for the world. I'm so thankful that I got to sit down with you and just talk about, dabble in one of the many things that you're passionate about. I just think you're making such a great impact on the world, and I'm
Thank
just
you.
thankful for everything you do.
Thank you. You too. You're incredible. I didn't even get a chance to gush you with love in the beginning, but you're amazing. And I've heard about you for a while, and I never it wasn't until you reached out to me for your podcast that I was like, oh, this is the person. I've heard
Yeah.
about you for a long time. And what I really like about what you're doing too on your socials is you have a really nice balance between like your life, and also, like not showing every single element of it. Like when you have children, I see some people who just put their children at the forefront of everything that they do, and it doesn't really give
Yeah.
them a chance to experience life off of social media. And you did such a nice job at integrating it, but like into the natural flow, to almost where they're not even aware that it's happening. They're just existing, and I think that's really beautiful.
Oh, I really appreciate that. I try really hard to be conscious about the way that I put my children online, and only show them when they're like really wanting it and digging it, and just not making it like it's the kid show. No, this
Yeah,
is like the Ellen, this is my life, and
this is
they're
the
in
Ellen
that life.
show.
This is the Ellen show, and they're in it. Obviously, they are
Right.
the huge, like the biggest part of my life. So it is definitely a balancing act. But yeah, I really value that, and actually, that's actually one of the reasons why I started the podcast. Not only because I'm was just itching to start talking about other things that I've never talked about before, but also because I wanted to shift off my main family channel and more into this as my kids get older, so that I can just
Mm,
kind of phase out of it. It just feels like the right step for our family, and I'm thankful for all the memories that we've created and like have online. Like the kids watch their birthday videos over and over, or
oh.
even like Scout is obsessed with watching her birth video and the video
Oh,
that's
that's so
like,
sweet.
yeah, so they watch it
Wow.
all the time. They love the videos that they put out there. And sometimes people say like, "Well, why don't you show your kids more when they're having like tantrums or yelling, because you're making life look too perfect." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, if you think that my life is perfect, then like just please realize it's not. But I'm only going to show my kids when they want to be online. Like I wouldn't want somebody to film me when I was upset,
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So yeah, so I just try to just keep it more about this the other topics that I'm doing, and then like integrate my kids as well throughout it when they want to be in it. So
Right.
thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, of course.
Cool. Well, I think we'll end it here. We talked about a lot of things.
Yeah, we did. We sure did.
I said this in my last episode because I just recorded an episode with Dominic Thompson. I was like, what the heck am I going to title this? Because we talked about so many things, and I feel that way with you too.
Yeah, I don't know. Good luck.
Yeah. All right. Well, signing off now, and I'll figure out a title. We will figure it out. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you so much, Sophia.